Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to take the first part of Chapter 1, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. This first part contains his childhood, and we are going to see the stream of consciousness incarnated in the two first pages of this beautiful novel. The novel starts with an epigraph. An epigraph, as you know, is a short quotation from a literary work. Some authors place it in the beginning of a chapter or of a book. It usually contains the theme of that novel or that work. The novel starts with an epigraph that means, and he committed himself to unknown arts. It's Latin, it's taken from the poet Ovid, which was a great um, poet. He wrote many volumes of myths. He collected it in a large series of books. One of these books is called Metamorphosis, which means transformation. In this book, you see, this is the definition of an epigraph. It's very important, which is a short quotation or a saying at the beginning of a word or a chapter intended to suggest its theme. Okay, so Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, wrote about a great myth, which is called the myth of Daedalus and Acarus. Daedalus was a architect. He was famous for designing the labyrinth, which is a large maze, a labyrinth for King Minos of Crete. King Minos wanted to imprison the Minotaur, was a strange creature who had the body of a human being, but a head and a tail of a bull. He also imprisoned a lot of people he didn't like in that labyrinth. Daedalus, although he designed the labyrinth in a very creative way, he was imprisoned by King Minos in his own creation. He was imprisoned in the same labyrinth along with his son Acarus. So Daedalus wanted to escape from this labyrinth. He designed wings of wax for him and for his son to escape. And so he did. He told his son not to fly so close to the sun so his wings wouldn't melt and he would fall. But of course the son didn't listen to his father. He flew very close to the sun. His wings melted. He fell to the sea and he drowned. Daedalus watched his son drowning and couldn't do anything about it. So, the very beginning of this novel starts with a reference to this great mythology, to this great architect who built a labyrinth and he was able to escape it because of his creativity, because he can make wings for himself and fly. So, the hero of the story, his name is Stephen Daedalus. So it's a classical allusion. It's a classical allusion to this character. Uh, so the novel starts with a young boy telling us a story that his father used to tell him. Once upon a time, there was what? There was a boy. His name is Taku, and that Taku saw a moo cow. Notice that he's referring to the cow as a moo cow, and he's remembering the maid that is coming and carrying the sweets, the lemon sweets. It's a childish style, concentrating on the fact that we are in the mind, the brain of a child who is maybe 3 years old. Once upon a time, and a very good time it was, there was a moo cow coming down along the road. And this moo cow that was coming along the road met the nicest little boy named Baby Taku. Of course, the Stephen Douglas is the Baby Taku. His father told him that story. His father looked at him through a glass. which means his father used to wear a monocle, one glass, not uh, like our spectacles. He had a hairy face. He was baby Taku. The moo cow came down the road where Betty Barn lived, and she sowed lemon plat. Lemon plat, which it's a type of Irish sweets for kids. Oh, the wild roses blossoms on the little green place. He sang that song. That was his song. You see, the flower and rose, especially the rose imagery, is going to be repeated throughout the novel. You can find it every now and then, especially with their distinctive colors. Sometimes they are red, sometimes they are uh, white, and sometimes they are green. Here, he's talking about wild roses as if he's telling you that he's a wild rose in a green place because this was his song. His father used to sing it for him. He sang the song because it was his song. Notice how is he showing you he cannot even pronounce the word rose. Instead, he said wooth. Oh, the green wooth botheth, which means blossoms, but he doesn't know how to say it. So he changes the color of the rose from green, red, or we don't know. Actually, it's a wild rose, so maybe it's red, into green. Now, after he switches from taste of lemon plat to songs and hearing, he moves to the feel and the touch. When you wet the bed, first it's warm and then it gets cold. His mother put on the oil sheet. That had the queer smell. It says the fact that um James Joyce really, really relies on sensory reactions of his character. They are reacting to every sense that they have. Mostly it's sounds, smells, and taste because, as you know, James Joyce had a really bad eyesight. So he focuses on all senses except his sight. And you can find always the opposites: wet, cold, hot, warm. Everything has its counterpart. Okay. His mother had a nicer smell than his father. She played on the piano the sailor's hornpipe for him to dance, and he danced. This part is showing you how he enjoys words, songs, and poetry, and he used to dance just listening to them because he was a child. You have to pay attention that when he grows up, he continues loving words and songs, but he, being self-conscious, he doesn't dance to them, and people don't clap for him anymore because he's more self-conscious. Uncle Charles and Dante clapped. They were older than his father and mother, but Uncle Charles was older than Dante. Dante is his aunt or governess. Uh, he calls her Dante because he doesn't know how to say auntie. Okay, Dante is a very, very important character in this novel. Dante had two brushes in her press. The brush with the maroon velvet back was for Michael Davitt, and the brush with the green velvet back was for Parnell. Dante gave him a cuchou every time he brought her a piece of tissue paper. Okay, we have his governess, which was an old, respected woman. She has two brushes, one with the color maroon and the other with green. You see, these colors will be repeated throughout the novel. They are very important colors. The first color, which is maroon, represents Michael Davitt, which is a patriotic Irish a man who was a leader. He co-founded with Parnell. Parnell is another Irish leader. They both co-founded the home rule. Ireland was under the control of a Britain, and they wanted to escape this control. They wanted Ireland to be free, independent. So they did all their best to break away from the restraints of Britain, but they were not able to do so, especially Parnell, because he died before, and he died in a very we're going to see that in details because Parnell is a very central figure here. Michael Davitt is an Irish activist. He organized and did a lot of things with Charles Stewart Parnell, and both of these characters are very important to Irish nationalists. The problem with Parnell is that although he was the leader of the Irish Parliament and he did a great, great national achievement, he had one flaw that the Catholic did not accept. He had an adulterous relationship with a married woman, so the Catholic condemned him as being a bad person. Of course, consequently, people rejected him because of his flaw. And in the novel, he's pictured as dying because of a broken heart. Although he didn't die because of a broken heart, he was sick and he died. These political colors are symbolic. Maroon, see, these are the brushes of Dante. Maroon represent the government and the Catholic all over the novel. Green represent Ireland and the nationalists throughout the novel. This section of chapter 1 ends with the Stephen Daedalus telling us that the Vances, their neighbor, Vances lived in number 7. They had a different father and mother, which means they are not Catholic, they are a Protestant. And there is a huge, huge tear between those two religious parts. Since Stephen Daedalus' family were Catholic, the Vences were Protestant. Those Vences had a beautiful daughter. They were Elaine's father and mother. When they were grow up, he was going to marry Elaine. But he couldn't marry her because she's a Protestant and his family is Catholic, and Dante was a very strict person. So he was scared of her. He hid under the table because he told them, I'm just gonna marry Elaine when I grow up. His mother said, "Oh, Stephen will apologize." Why will he apologize? He's going to apologize because he dared to think of marrying a Protestant girl. Dante said, "Oh, if not, the eagles will come and pull out his eyes, apologize, apologize, pull out his eyes." Look at his pun on playing on words. He enjoys words. Even the punishment that comes out of Dante's mouth, he changes it into a song. Although he's kneeling, bending under the table, he did not apologize and Dante was scaring him, he changed the threat into a song. Motives and sensory details. Throughout the novel, we are going to find a lot of juxtapositions, opposites, hot, cold, light, dark, good, bad, wet, and dry. Of course, Catholic, Protestants. There are a lot of symbols that will be repeated throughout, each time used in a different way. The maze, the labyrinth, birds, imagery all over the place because it goes back to the classical allusion to Daedalus. Water in all of its shapes. Water, whether it's in sea or you drink it, you're drowning it. The most important thing about these two first pages of the novel that it shapes the whole novel. It just tells you what's going to happen. It shows you the theme, the plot, the characters, the setting. Of course, the most beautiful setting that we have is the mind, the brain of Stephen Dedalus that we are inside. Conflicts, language, and style. the first two pages shows you the childish style of a 30-year-old. And when we move in the next lecture, inshallah, we are going to see from childhood, we're going to move to boyhood. We have a boy, we have different vocabulary. So we are going to develop with our own character. I hope you enjoy the lecture. Thank you very much.